Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Riding of Yorkshire series. Together with the unparished city of Hull, it forms the county of the same name. There's 172 parishes here. Which one are we in today? Welcome back to the East Riding of Yorkshire, everybody. The sun is shining brightly today. I've got the glasses on, I've got the hat on, but I've also got my jumper on because even though the sun's up, it's quite cool, it's quite fresh for an August morning. Where are we? Well, we are to the east of Hull today. We're in a place called Bilton. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Our next run of parishes in the East Riding takes us from the eastern end of Hull all the way to the North Sea coast near Hornsea. Starting it off, we have Bilton, which can be considered an expanded village. It's almost conjoined to Hull, its western end barely distinguishable from the city's eastern suburbs. Bilton's origins can be traced back to at least Anglo-Saxon times, and the name is thought to mean Billa's farm. Mentioned in the Domesday Book, the village remained a tiny farming community well into the 19th century. It consisted of a few farmhouses and a handful of other buildings, located along a single street which led south to a church and in some side lanes to Wyton and Hull. The street was called Back Lane, possibly in relation to a main road, but by 1954 it had been renamed. Rapid expansion took place here during the 20th century, giving Bilton a more modern, suburban-like feel. Bilton has now become a popular settlement for those working in Hull, but it still does have its own little quirks. It continues to support a local church, a school and a village hall, and it also has a dramatic society which operates from premises in Hull. And how's this for unique? It's here you can try a little known sport which involves throwing knives and axes. That's certainly not your average leisure pursuit. Let's go and find out all about it. Bilton Parish incorporates two small hamlets as well as the main village. To begin, we're taking a drive through one of them. This is Wyton, a linear settlement which stretches east from Bilton towards Sprotely. Wyton is a small farming village with a handful of houses lining its one main street. Its name literally means women's farm. Its recorded history is quite modest, but it's known that it was a Quaker village in the 17th century. There are still some signs of Quaker involvement out here, such as the remains of houses on something called the Sprotely Track, which leads from Sprotely to Coniston. Wyton contains a Grade 2 listed Wesleyan Methodist church, a milestone and a hall, but there are no notable amenities such as a school or a pub. Lucky then for its residents that it's practically conjoined to Bilton, which has quite a bit more. Let's park this car up and get cracking with today's main walk. Beginning in the northeastern corner of Bilton, this is Dorney Road, a name that should be familiar to the regular viewer. Heavily mentioned in York, a branch of the Dorney family were lords of the manor. Their name makes several appearances here. We're in a massive housing estate, essentially what the modern Bilton village is. Most of it was built in the 20th century. It was once a village consisting of just one simple street with a few farmhouses, but that village is now totally unrecognisable. By 1994, the old main street was completely engulfed by these new estates, as Bilton became more and more of a commuter village. Very few older buildings remain today, but if you know where to go, some of them can still be spotted. It's not all houses here. There are plenty of little green areas, like this one for example, which had some bushy trees. And there's a couple of businesses like Illusions Beauty Salon, which is next to a hairdresser's called Urban. So thus far, very residential. It reminds me a little bit of Hayborough in northeast Lincolnshire for a few reasons, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why. This white house you can see there, you remember in Hayborough we had a very similar morning to this, and there was a white house that looked almost as white as that does. The residential area continues onto Highfield Crescent. This estate, originally 44 council houses, was built in around 1950. Since then, Bilton has grown considerably larger, but it was here where the 20th century growth of the village began. Here's the school. This is Bilton Community Primary, which provides primary education for about 300 pupils. Last seen in Selby, Bilton uses the school street scheme, which bans vehicles from using this road at certain times of day. Next is School Lane, which has a telephone exchange on it. Built in 1955, this used to be known as Bilton Bar. At the end of School Lane, you hit Lime Tree Lane. This is the oldest part of Bilton, although you'd likely never know. This was originally Bilton's main street. It ran south to the church and was called Back Lane, later being renamed. Okay, we're at the end of Lime Tree Lane where there's another white house. That one's actually called the White House. We're going to walk past that towards the village hall next, which is on the main road into Hull here. Main road then now, and there's a couple of businesses to see here. One of them is a dentist's, in your shot now. Nearby is a George VI pillar box. Most of Bilton's interesting landmarks are clustered around this western end of the village. If you follow a track off to the right here, you find the Bilton and District branch of the British Legion, and that's not all. Bilton's football teams are based up here too. These include AFC Bilton, members of the East Riding County League. No surprise then that the playing field is accessible from here as well. Bilton also has another very unusual sports club. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present Phoenix Throwers, a group dedicated to the sport of knife, axe and tomahawk throwing. They meet every Wednesday and have their very own floodlit grounds, known as a range. You don't see this everywhere, do you? Crossing the playing field brings you to a communal building. Its official name is the Bilton, Wyton and Gansted Village Hall. This was opened in 1986 after fundraising efforts by local residents and grants from the local councils. And there's a decent sized playground to go with all of this as well. There's more than enough for everyone in Bilton Village. And given this is the heart of the Bilton community, what better place for a parish notice board? One of these is going on the board right now. There we go. That is... Shall we try that again? They never stick when it's fresh in the morning. It's going to be horrible in winter time when it gets icy. It's stuck this time. That's Bilton in the books. Now next we're heading for the church. We need to cross the road. It's behind the camera and away to your right as you look at it, my left. We'll head to the church next and see what that's all about. Church Lane brings us to the St Peter's Church Centre, which works in conjunction with the church next door. And here is St Peter's Church, which was rebuilt in 1851 by Payne Dorney and designed by the architect G.T. Andrews. The original church was dedicated to St Mary Magdalene, but it's not clear when the dedication was changed. St Peter's comprises an undivided nave and chancel with a north vestry, south porch and a western double bellcote. By 1868 a stone communion rail dividing chancel and nave had been installed and a stone reredos was added in 1886. Behind the church is Swan Hill House, which was once the vicarage. It's since been converted into a private dwelling. Also behind the church we have Bilton Cemetery. This was opened in 1962 as an extension to the churchyard. And also here is the War Memorial inside a spiked rail enclosure. This is for Wyton and Gansted as well as Bilton. After walking back to the end of Church Lane, we're met with a white phone box. Well, we are near Hull after all. Okay, now I've come across the road to an aptly named street, St Peter's View, because from here you can see the church. And all I have to do at this point now is take a left along the main road and then left again at the very end to take me round to where I've parked the car, and that'll be the circuit of Bilton. Next to pass on Main Road is a bus stop. Bilton is served by 3 buses which go to Hull, Hedon and to Beverley as well. The rest of the road is housing. There are no more amenities now until we reach Main Road's junction with Holmes Lane. There's a few side streets along the way. It's hard to comprehend that in 1921 Bilton's population was just 127. It's now over 2,000. The southern side of Main Road is not quite as built up, but there is a farm or two though. Here you're looking at Red House Farm, one of Bilton's Grade 2 listed properties. Its oldest parts date from the 18th century. In 1936, part of Bilton Grange Farm was bought by the Hull Corporation, and now 800 homes sit on the resulting estate. We're almost at the end of the road now. Before Bilton becomes Wyton, there's a handful of small businesses. There's a takeaway up here called Diamond Pizza on your screen now, which is next door to another hair salon called Ask. Beyond both of these, there's also a BP petrol station, at which point the road bends south towards Preston. To complete the route, we head up Holmes Lane, once a quiet country road with no houses at all until a few decades ago. And here we are back to Dorney Road, completing the walking route. There's one final piece of driving to do though. Finally, before we leave Bilton, we still have to cover Gansted, the second of the 2 small hamlets that sit within Bilton's boundaries. Memory test time. Do you remember the Riston episode and how there we discussed how the A165 cut the village of Arnold into 2 pieces? Well, here in Gansted the same thing happened. When the A165 was built, Gansted was split into Gansted East and Gansted West. Previously one continuous lane, traffic now cannot access one side of the village from the other without using the A165. Unlike Arnold, there's no multicoloured subway, but pedestrians can walk across the road via a crossing. And that's been Bilton, folks. Whilst it may not be the most exciting village in the world, it is at least a great place to live if you're a commuter. As Hull gets ever larger, who knows how long before Bilton is just another city suburb. Join me next week for another lovely East Yorkshire village. Bye for now. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.